Cheers!
Cheers!
So, Simon Sensei, we have a new guest today. This is Peter Consterdine Sensei, 9th Dan, and it is a huge privilege, and I'm truly looking forward to having this chat with you. So, Peter Sensei, thank you very much for
it's
doing this.
It's a pleasure. I enjoyed the seminar. I enjoyed the seminar last week as well. That was good fun.
No, it was truly great. It was very, very interesting, and I do want to talk about that. But but like Simon normally does most of the talking on these things, especially when we have a guest. So I always kind of like let him start off, kind of because asking a question, and then towards the end I try to get a word in edgeways. So off you go, Simon.
Well, I'm not going to say anything then.
Don't be like that. Don't be like
What's
that.
your favourite colour, Sensei? No, what I'm going to say to you. I started karate in 1974. You started in 1964 with Wado, yeah? And you're from Manchester, yeah?
Yes, yeah. So that was the Seidokan Club in Ancoats, which is one of the back streets.
I went to University of Manchester. Yeah, I know Ancoats.
Yeah. And that was run by Martin Stott and Danny Connor.
Yeah.
And Martin had been training over in Paris with a sort of Wado guy, Tam Maitho.
Wow.
Who some people will remember, but not many.
I don't know him, no.
No. Martin brought that back, but then eventually moved to more pure Wado when the Sensei Suzuki, Schmitz, Takazawa came over, which would probably have been about 65. But the Seidokan clubs then, Simon, were part of originally started was the ABKA, Association of British Karate Association, became the BKA, which is still going now, and the chairman of it is a close friend of mine, who still trained with for 40 odd years. So
did Danny run it for a while, didn't he?
Yes, Danny did. So what happened was we had the Seidokan clubs, which were basically northern Wado clubs in the BKA, and we always had that north-south divide where we never thought that we were getting a fair deal, either on teams, getting selection for teams, although to be fair, it never affected me. I was okay getting on the Great Britain and England teams, but generally the North wasn't well thought of. So eventually the BKA in '69 all broke apart, but the Seidokan clubs, which were then run by Roy Stanhope, and ourselves as senior grades, we moved to the Shukokai.
How did that happen then? I mean, that was revolutionary, wasn't it?
It was really, but it was of course in Scotland with
Morris, Morris.
Yes,
Tommy Morris.
Yes. Tommy Morris had been doing the Shukokai in Japan with Tani and with Kimura, and Kimura had been working with the South Africans and what was then Rhodesia at that time before it had changed to Zimbabwe, and we were on that cusp. Some people moved to the Shotokan side. Billy Higgins moved to KUGB.
Right.
He started on a beginner's course. I started for Danny in '65, I suppose, something like that, in Wigan. He moved to the KUGB. And Tommy came down with the Burkes, Ian and Miles Burke, to do
a demo. They were good. Oh yeah, they were tough, weren't they?
They were great guys, and we were very impressed with that, and decided that we'd form the SKU, Shukokai Karate Union, and Kimura then, because we had a really solid base to go from in the SKU. He came over as the permanent chief instructor.
You were downgraded by this stage.
Yeah, I was downgraded in Wado, first down in Wado.
So just for people who don't know, I mean, Shukokai was very modern compared to Wado, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
I mean, that was literally, because Steve Cattle always said to me he thought Shukokai was the best punching style.
Yeah, well, Tani, of course, was a student of Mabuni.
Yeah.
So Tani was a long-term student of Mabuni, and he got an agreement to start Taniha off Mabuni, which really was Shtoryu as we knew it.
Yeah.
But then he, along with Kimura, brought in all these dynamic elements to it, the double hip, kick shot, working angles, a whole range of different dynamics.
And they had that kame, didn't they? Used to fight in this sort of.
Correct. Yeah. That absolutely spot on. Yeah, and that was what distinguished a Shukokai fighter in those days.
Well, you could tell in those days. You go to a tournament and you could tell what style people did. Because Shotokan people almost Kadambarai, but often like a guard. There's a few Goju guys who would do like cat stance.
Yeah.
And then the Shukokai guys would come out. It was really exciting, you know?
Yeah. And I always said in those days, you could normally look at somebody and tell who their instructor was.
Yeah.
You could look at a student and know where they came from.
Yeah.
The way that they did certain things. Not now. That's just a morass now. But
did Shukokai? You left Wado for Shukokai because you thought it was better, more effective, the future.
There were a number of things really, and they evolved. Simon, initially when we saw the movement and we felt the impact, this was different, and how the movement was put together. Even something like Oitsuki was a totally different concept, the way it was put together, with the kick shock to move forward.
Was it pads from day one? Because that came in very quick. Like people had those swimming things, didn't they?
Yeah, well, those were the ether foam pads, which I've still got now. They've lasted for years. It was ether foam was like an insulation thing, but it didn't deform. It kept that same integrity. But no, we used to take the gi tops off, wrap them together and put a belt round.
Yeah, we did that.
For years,
hit the wall.
Years and years, maybe a couple of years, until we discovered the ether foam pads. And then we advanced with the science of home improvement.
And then do you remember when Kimura came over?
That would be, the SKU formed in '69, and Kimura was over very shortly after that.
And did he impressed the hell out of it?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was a totally different experience. Yeah,
because he could hit, couldn't he?
He could, and he could move over distances that you couldn't see him move. There was no lateral, and I mentioned this on the seminar last week about, he used to say, imagine when you're moving forward, you're in a metal tunnel. You've got like half an inch on this side, half an inch on this side, and half an inch over your head. And don't touch either side or the top as you move, because that's what people will see. Because human beings are bad at depth, we've got poor depth perception. So it's hard for people to tell where you are moving forward. They can tell because you've got lateral or vertical movement. And he could cover a distance, and he was on you before you even realized, and you knew he was going to do it as well. And then at the end of it, the impact was just staggering. But it was the difference, and I think I mentioned this last week as well. The difference was how anglicized he and Tani were. And they were open to being asked questions. We spent as much time. We did a summer course with say Kimura at Lilleshall, where we held our summer course. We spent as much time in a classroom with him on a blackboard as we did with him on the floor.
And in those days, that would be like really revolutionary, wouldn't it?
It was revolutionary. It was just different, totally different again.
Was he still doing kata and stuff?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, the kata was frightening. When he did a kata, we all moved back. We moved back 5 feet to get. It was still a bit of a shock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever meet? Is it Nambu who did Sankukai? Did he?
Absolutely. Yeah, I've got a photo in a magazine. You've just formed a circle here, Simon, because the competition where I got that whack off Steve that hit was the first SKU Open.
Right.
Which was 1970. And I've got a photograph of Nambu refereeing the final between myself and Stan Knighton.
Right.
Nambu was around then quite a lot.
He was like a bit of a wizard, wasn't he?
He was an exceptional mover.
Mm-hmm.
Just one of the smoothest movers and karateka I've seen, Nambu. Yeah.
I mean, for people listening, he formed Nambudo, didn't he? Oh no, Sankukai. He formed Sankukai. And he got a following. Then he left and did something else.
Yeah.
And I get the feeling he was one of those guys. He could do it, but he couldn't teach anyone to do what he did.
It became a bit strange. I mean, they were wearing bell-bottom gis.
That's right. I remember.
Which I always thought was a bit odd, and not for everybody.
It was the 70s.
Yeah, but a lot of these Sankakai were Midlands SKU people who and good friends of mine, Alan White, who'd been on
Alan White, Butch White, yeah.
Butch, you know Butch.
Yeah.
Butch, of course, was one of the SKU guys. Great fighter, really nice. One of nature's nice people. Fierce fighter, but
big guy.
He was a Sankakai guy, Simon. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're doing this, and then I was around in the 70s, and then Full Contact Karate came out. I saw Ben Yukides on World of Sport doing the Full Contact Karate.
Yeah.
And then Danny Connor did an event at Rotter's nightclub.
Yeah.
And did full, and then you did one at Bellevue, I think, with the Miles brothers, and you in Fighting Arts, and you won.
Yeah, no, that was one of Danny's events at the Free Trade Hall in Manchester.
One of your Free Trade Hall, one of the first ones. So, what motivated you to do that?
Danny.
Right, to make money.
Yeah, Danny to make money.
Danny liked money.
Danny was like a brother to me, but one of those slightly off-centre brothers.
He was an entrepreneur, wasn't he?
He was, yeah.
I met him a couple, because I used to go to his shop in Swan Street when I was in Manchester.
I was just saying to Scott, the martial arts books behind here, a lot of them are Chinese Hong Kong publications.
Yeah.
That you can't get, that were in Oriental world. But of course, that was our centre.
Yeah, well, that's right, because Terry O'Neill had a shop in Liverpool, the Samurai, and when I went to university, I'd go to Swan Street maybe every Saturday just to hang around, occasionally buy something.
It was the time and place, Oriental World, Saturday. And Brian Seabright, who worked behind the counter there, with Lance Lewis.
Lance Lewis, God, he was good.
Well, I
saw him fight.
Yeah, this was the Full Contact. This is where I moved into the Full Contact. Is that I'd started training with Lance and Brian, who were quite young in those days, but we started training essentially because Lance was going for a world title. So we had this combined karate, Full Contact, kickboxing thing going on, and we still have it going on today.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question about your first fight?
Yeah.
Because I saw that my first Full Contact match I watched in Liverpool.
Yeah.
You could again tell what people's styles were.
Yeah.
There was a Kung Fu guy came on with gloves, and he literally does this like that.
Yeah.
And there's a Goju guy called Gary Black, who I knew from Terry O'Neill's dojo. Right. And he sort of came on like in Sanchin like this, and he knocked him out.
Yeah.
But then, the people were still sort of trying to do karate with gloves on. I mean, what was your, how did you prepare for your first Full Contact fight? Bearing in mind that in these days, people thought karate punches could kill you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So tell us about your first match.
Yeah, that one was, there were two fights that night, but I'd been training with Lance, who was one of Manchester's probably best boxers.
Yeah.
If you may not know, but Lance Lewis was invited to go and box at the Kronk gym.
Whoa, okay. Yeah, well famous
Kronk. He always tells the tale of sitting on a bench next to Tommy Hearns, waiting to go on and spar. So we got the boxing there. I used to do private lessons with a very good friend of a guy called Kenny, friend of Lance's. Brian Seabright was boxing amateur.
I know him, yeah.
And Brian, of course, runs the BKA now.
Yeah.
He runs the BKA. He's the chairman. Still trains with me every week. We're still doing that same session we did 45 years ago. Still the same one. So I was doing, because I'd got the impact, could punch, could kick. We got the Shukokai, but we fought under the PKA rules.
Yeah.
Which were all above the waist, which suited me, no leg kicks, and we were wearing the June Ree gear.
I remember, Terry O'Neill had them. They're ridiculously expensive, but they're so exciting.
Yeah, so we had the June Ree, and it was basically Full Contact karate, but not like Kyokushin Full Contact.
No.
So heads are in, got the gloves, and I just had 2 knockouts.
Yeah, I've got the report upstairs. Terry O'Neill said you were the best.
Yeah. Is that the one with the green pages in the middle?
That's it. Yeah, that's right. I've got all the Fighting Arts. Yeah. It's a really, really good one. And I think is it the Miles brothers were there with Miles Burke, or that they were there?
Not on that one, I don't think. No.
Because I tell you why. Do you ever remember Steve Tapner, the Wigan Hammer?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, Steve Tapner was, because I met him one time. I think he got his nightclub probably. And what amazed me about him was, I said, "What style do you do?" And he said, "I've never done a style." He taught himself.
Yeah,
he saw Bruce Lee and he loved Bruce Lee. So what he did was he looked at Bruce Lee, he got a bag, kicked it, taught it. He had great kick. He's a big, tough guy.
Well, he was a big, tough guy as well, Steve.
Yeah, and he was a big, tough guy. And I always say, often big, tough guys don't need to learn self-defense. No. You know, so he was like, I thought, how can you do full contact karate, like not be a black belt?
Yeah.
Really, yeah.
But I think I refereed that one you're talking about at Rotters. I refereed a lot of the time.
Yeah. And Danny did was it 100 quid for anyone who could do the most press ups or something? Or someone, maybe not 100 quid.
Yeah, but you'd have to collect it the week after somewhere obscure.
Oh yeah. Terms and conditions apply.
Ones fell in Cumbria.
Yeah.
You'd have to be.
Yeah, it's on top of a mountain. But I think I saw Lance Lewis on that one, and Steve Tapner impressed me the most because he was so big and someone out, you know.
Yeah, demonstrative. Yeah.
Do you want to ask a question here, Scott?
No. Well, just a couple of things. So you said Kimura Sensei, and what like when did they leave? What happened to them? What was the, because I wasn't around that time, so I don't know anything about them.
Yeah, so moving into the 80s, SKU was still going strong, but what we had was a personality clash between Roy Stanhope and Kimura, and that wasn't resolving itself. So eventually there was a fallout, and Kimura emigrated to the States.
Okay.
And opened he started off in a dojo with a Japanese judo guy who was a friend of his, I think. Was it Hackensack, New Jersey? I think the first dojo. Then he got his own dojo and formed Kimura Shukokai, which is still going now. And then very sadly, a few years later, he died far too early, Kimura.
Heart attack, wasn't it?
Sorry?
Heart attack.
Yeah, heart attack.
So with your journey, so when was it that you moved away from that mainstream style-based organization and started to form the British Combat Association, or there was a lot going on in the middle there, Scott, because just go back to turn the clock back to when I first started. So I had two instructors. That was Martin Stott and Danny. And probably about 18 months after I'd started, Danny went off to the Far East, to Japan. Oh. He got invited to go over there and train at one of the universities where Wado was. And it didn't go too well, but he stayed in the Far East and spent a lot of time in China, a lot of time in Hong Kong, picking up all the Tai Chi, making lots of contact with the Wing Chun people, with a lot of other, came back, and that's when he started Oriental World, but came back with all the Chinese systems. So because I had got back with Danny again, and really he was like a brother to me, you know, one that could lead you down some very dark paths.
It's dodgy. He was a diamond geezer, but a bit dodgy, wasn't he?
Yeah, but he was great. But you really had to know who you were dealing with, otherwise it could go badly wrong for you. And on occasions it was close to it. Yeah. But because of all that Chinese influence, I'd started the Wing Chun. In 1970, I started working the doors in Manchester. And in 71, I started as a club. I was then there for the next 8 years. And I did originally 4 nights a week. At that time, I was employed by the Sun Alliance Insurance. So I was working in an office. I had clubs in North Manchester, in Warrington. I was doing private lessons.
What were you teaching then?
Self-defense.
Okay.
Yeah, I was hitting the exec market in Manchester, doing 6-week self-defense lessons. Mm-hmm. But what happened after that was the people sort of enjoyed what they were doing, then wanted to do martial arts. So of course they stayed on doing private lessons, but doing the karate then. So I was adding the karate things onto it. So I was working the door, doing Wing Chun, and it was working the door. The reason I went on the door was that I was not happy with the construct of martial competition. Flags, whistles, time, stopped if you got hit, you know, somebody would jump in. So I needed that. I needed to test that realism.
So you weren't doing it for the money, you were doing it for martial arts reasons?
Not the money. No. When I was working on the door, my Rolls Royce was parked on the other side. I was for 15 years. I was in financial services.
Right.
I was working for a division of Schroders, the merchant bank.
Yeah.
So I was on the sales side, and I ran Schroders financial management in Manchester, then the Northwest. But I was still working the door.
Wow.
Up to 78.
And these were the days when you wore a tuxedo, wouldn't you?
Yeah, mine was green. I had a green velvet one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for younger viewers, doormen would wear like dicky bows and stuff. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
I remember. But and also, I mean, but that was, I mean, Manchester is a dangerous town. And then, I mean, did you use Wing Chun when you were in the doors?
That was where it came in, because that was my concern with the competitions I've been involved in, even the full contact, that it started at a distance that nothing in the street started at. On the door that I worked at, a place called Placemate, which was just off Piccadilly, it had a small foyer, single door, small foyer, say 7 foot by 7 foot, with double doors leading into the big foyer. So we were in, two of us would be in that first space there. And that was the space you had, either the door, single leaf door, or that area. So people were within touching distance. So there was no, and you know, I mentioned this in one of the concepts that rules everything for me is, at touching distance, action beats reaction.
Yeah.
I don't care how many blocks you've thrown.
This is a quick question. Paul Owen asked me a question to ask you, Paul, our friend, is, do blocks work?
Yeah, blocks work if you know the thing's coming and you're out of distance.
Yeah.
But blocks don't work.
Did you ever meet Alan Lamb then?
So I'll go back to the full contact.
Yeah.
So I used to have lessons with Alan Lamb.
Yeah. Alan Lamb, for anyone, for younger listeners, basically went to Hong Kong and learned Wing Chun.
And met Danny. And met Danny.
I met Danny, met Danny. And then he came back to England, and then he ended up in California. I think he did quite well for himself.
He did, yeah.
Yeah, and I met him once with Terry O'Neill's dojo, and he was very good. He seemed to be very good to me.
Yeah, Alan was up in the Northeast, and he had a fighter in that competition at the Free Trade Hall.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Who was, I fought middleweight, and his guy, I can't remember his name, fought heavyweight, and he won as well.
Yeah.
But he brought him down to train with us on the full contact side, but I was doing private lessons with Alan on the Wing Chun side as well.
Yeah.
Upstairs in Oriental World.
Wow.
And then,
do you still rate Wing Chun?
Yeah, no, I do. Yeah, well, it's hard really, because everything you say that's observational sounds critical, but
it lacks power, do you think?
Yeah, this applies to all martial arts, Simon.
Yeah.
Each martial art works best with itself. Okay, so it's designed for itself. And that's
a really good answer, yeah.
They purport to say it will work with this, but it won't. Wing Chun will struggle with a really good boxer. Some grapplers will struggle with Wing Chun. Karate people will struggle with Wing Chun because it's simultaneous block and counter, not blocking and countering. When I first, do you know, I'm just trying to think, in Manchester, we trained with some Malaysian Wing Chun guys at Salford University.
Samuel Kwok?
Well, Sam Kwok, I was Sam Kwok's first indoor student.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
When he was a waiter in Blackpool. I used to go over and have private lessons with Sam in his house in Blackpool. He was in a semi with his Wing Chun dummy on the party wall. So knows what they thought next door, banging away at this. Yeah. So I've known Sam for many, many years.
Yeah.
Well, I was his first indoor student.
Right.
Yeah, Gaijin anyway. But
the Malaysian guy, then who's that?
Sorry?
Who's the Malaysian guy? Austin Go?
No. These were the students at Salford University.
Yeah.
It was a friend of mine, Steve Powell. You know Steve?
Oh yeah, Steve Powell. Yeah.
Manchester, Shukokai again, going back, Manchester YMCA. We used to Saturday morning. We used to have a sparring session down there at the YMCA. Steve was there, a few other guys, Roy Stanhope, and Steve said, "Oh, I've met these Wing Chun guys. We'll go and do some training." And I started sparring, and when one of them blocked and countered at the same time, bastard. So I told him it wasn't on. We didn't do that. In proper martial arts, you block, you pause, and then you counter.
And then you shout.
Yeah. And he goes, "What the fuck are you going on about?" In Malay. He said, "No, we go bang and whack." I thought, there's something in this.
Yeah.
But what it gave me, and we do now, we have what we call adaptive. We've got adaptive Wing Chun. So we use Wing Chun to play with all the time. We use all the principles from Wing Chun.
Yeah.
And we incorporate them even in sort of boxing type things. We got that, although you lose the sensitivity. The beauty about Wing Chun is it gives you a third eye. You know, these hands in front are like a third eye. So much so that once you touch somebody, you know exactly what's going to happen after that. Once you've got an arm on a wrist, you know exactly what that person's going to do, which is why, you know, you'll see them in Hong Kong on the banqueting tables. The Wing Chun dog and pony show is two guys blindfold doing chi sao.
Yeah.
On the basis that you don't need to be able to see what's happening, you can feel it through the sensitivity. So there's some great elements to Wing Chun. But we've adapted that to what we do, as we have the boxing, as we have other elements of full contact, layered on the foundation of karate, Simon.
So what would you consider that you do now, if you had to kind of describe it, encapsulate it? I mean, it's certainly not karate, it's certainly not kung fu. How would you describe it if some Joe Blogs asked you?
Yeah, I think the easiest thing, without the answer taking 15 pages and an appendix, we would say kickboxing. If it was a rank and file answer,
yeah,
which doesn't do it justice because it's more than that, you know. But if anybody asks, for ease of use, some people, if I think it's easier, would say karate. We would say freestyle karate, so we're not style, you know, we're not style denominated.
In many ways, you could say you do Jeet Kune Do.
Yeah, it's yeah, absolutely. It's all,
you know,
yeah.
Because you talk about having that base. I mean, the reason why Bruce Lee was Bruce Lee, because he had a really good base in Wing Chun.
Yeah.
And then he did his own research and did everything else.
Correct.
And no disrespect to people who do Jeet Kune Do. I don't think you can teach that stuff without a base, can you?
No, I don't think so. I think having a base, if you've used that base properly, it's made you question things. So you should leave a base, not leave it, but you should have that base to one side, but it's left you a questioning mind as to maybe where it doesn't work in certain circumstances. And that's when Jeff Thompson and I started the BCA, which is 28 years ago, people misunderstood us. We weren't saying karate didn't work. We were saying it didn't work in whole in this situation where you were within touching distance of the classic angry man, where whoever started it would win it. Absolutely no question about it. So then preemption comes into it. So the only answer to that is when you know that you have an inevitable conclusion to this discourse that's going on, that you have to stop it. You have to stop that person's plan of action, which is preemptive strikes. And then you need 4 things, that's all.
Well, why I was fascinated with last weekend when we did the seminar was that you were talking about like this twitch start.
Yeah.
And if you twitch start, it produces a twitch response to them, which can be counterproductive. So you have this kind of almost slow rolling start that is kind of almost imperceptible, which is far more effective. Like, where did you, I mean, I thought that was amazing, brilliant. Where did you get that from? How did you discover that?
Yeah, it just along the journey, really, Scott. So and again, what you're trying to do all the time is, so you look at a lot of the books here, they're psychology books. So you're looking at, things like a human being's startle response. What innovates a startle response? And the classic example, which I used last week, was the stone to the window of the car. You're driving along the motorway, Sonic. Your reaction is the fastest it will ever be to twitch your head. It's incredibly fast. You could never duplicate it if you tried to do it. So that startle response happens with no cognitive process innovating it. But you're doing the same thing where you twitch in front of somebody, their natural reaction is a twitch. If you fire a pistol behind somebody, that startle response will happen. Hands come up, heads goes down. So what you're trying to do, if you're within touching distance, it doesn't matter, because even with that twitch, you'll still be hitting before they can do anything. So anything within touching distance, whoever starts it wins it. That's classic. Anything slightly out of that, then it needs to be more languid, as if you're actually moving away from them. So I used to say, I'd look at them, then I'd look away, and I'd say, I'll forget this. And as I went this way, their eyes would look at me, but this hand's coming for a slap, which they won't see because they've kept looking at me. Okay, and that would have 10 ton behind it with the double hip and the whip from the hip. So we got to the point we could knock people out with a slap, resting it from their shoulder to the side of the face. Which
in many ways, your time as a doorman was like in like martial art terms. That was your like apprenticeship, wasn't it? Learning martial arts.
Yeah, it was, and again, Jeff and I always felt guilty when we started the British Combat Association, because we almost started that whole practical self-protection thing that's now taken everything over. And we had instructors coming to us who ran really successful martial arts operations and dojos, who wanted to do all the self-protection, but felt that they had to throw the rest of it away to get to this. And it's like, no, you're doing the martial arts for a whole host of great reasons. Great sport, great competition, great fitness, great confidence building, great self-defense, great social thing. So my analogy, and I think Scott, you have to correct me where I talked about it last week, is your martial arts is in this big box. You've got everything you do in it. It's like your big box. And you might do things in it that just seem to make no sense, but they're hard to do. Great if you can make it work. But outside of that big box with everything in, you've got smaller boxes. One might be tick you're on competition. One might be full contact. One might be self-defense. One might be working the door. So out of this big box, I don't throw that away. I just take the things that will work from the big box and drop them in these boxes. So for working the door, 4 techniques, 5 at most, used preemptively with a double hip and deception and tactics and some good strategy. But I didn't stop doing the big box. The next day, I'd be kicking and punching and maybe still doing kata. For whatever reason, I did that. But I didn't throw all that away because I said, oh, that's worthless. No, in its own right, it all has value. But you can't say, which is the condemnation of martial artists who get caught with this system-style territoriality. This will work for anything. No, bollocks, it won't. You're going to get knocked out. It ain't gonna work in that box. Take bits out. And that's what we're trying to get over to people. You know, think about scenarios properly and think what you've got that will work. But there are hundreds of reasons why you would still enjoy getting into that big box.
I mean, a couple of weeks ago, I was quite sort of anti people who teach self-defense who've never done any self-defense. You know, there's quite a lot of people who make overly complicated. You grab me, stab me, not like that, like that.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, you're obviously a living, you know, practicing it as a martial art. So two questions. What is tell me the five techniques, and then tell me about your fitness training, because that seems to fit in, really resonates with me.
Just to, and I think I mentioned this last week, you know, to that point, Simon.
Yeah.
So you look at martial arts magazines were the worst offenders for this.
Yeah.
You know, and I ended up doing it as well because I was asked to do it. But so you see on page 8 the start of a self-defense sequence, and the 4 photographs. You turn over to page 9. Fuck me, there's another 4 photographs. It's still going on. You look on the next page, and it finishes till you got 12 different things in this self-defense. So go back to the first page. What you should see is one photograph with 2 people standing in front of each other, with one going like this, and on the next photograph, one's lying on the floor. That's a self-defense sequence. That's it.
Yeah.
Anything more complicated than a right cross or a gaku is fucking excessive. That's it. When it's in front of the classic angry man who's about to swamp you and who wants to get inside this fence you've created. So that's the reality of it. Okay.
Yeah. So tell me about, because I've read a lot of your articles. I think one of your books about fitness for karate conditioning, which is great, because I mean, one of the reasons I do karate is for training. You know, I mean, that's kind of my you know, I'm getting old, but I'm like you. I mean, I'm fit.
Yeah.
And you do a lot of you still train hard, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah. Still. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, also before you answer that in full, also how has your training changed since, I don't know, from your 30s, 40s until now? Has it changed, or do you just keep on keeping on?
No, it's pretty much the same. Yeah, pretty much the same. So if you go back to those sessions that we used to do in Manchester with Lance and Brian and other guys from Manchester that we had in that group then, all training full contact. So we're doing shield work, pad work, fitness work, lots of drills, hugely inventive on all the different types of drills that we do. But those for me, so those sessions, and there was one this morning, so I have two of those sessions, Sunday morning and Thursday morning, and I've got a group on Thursday morning of anywhere between 8 to 12 of us, and then on Sunday a group between 6 to 8 of us, could be 10 depending on who's not doing something else on a Sunday morning, and it's the same session. So if you looked at a session 40 odd years ago, doing some shield drill up and down the room, or some pad work or something else, or sparring, then it would look exactly the same. But that's so that's just 2 sessions a week like that, and I wouldn't want to do any more because they are. And then so that's 2 sessions a week, and I train 6 times a week. So that was today. Tomorrow I'm not training. Tuesday morning will be weights for me, and it will be chest and tries, abs, and maybe calves. Wednesday will be back biceps, abs, and another part of the legs. Thursday morning is that same session again, the group session, pads and shields, drills. Friday is shoulders. Saturday is a catch-up if I've missed a session during the week on a body part doing resistance training, but mainly CV on Saturday. So that's my week.
Yeah, no, but also I think what you do is you do 2 hard sessions, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
but the others are hard as well. The others can be hard.
Yeah.
So the shoulder session, normally the weight sessions are not. They're quite strict, still high reps. So we work light to medium weights, high reps. But on Friday morning, when we do shoulders, we use battle ropes.
Oh yeah.
Which is massively taxing.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to work now is more. I was talking on Saturday on the seminar about Stephen Sealer. If you've seen him, Simon, there's a professor, Texan, but he's in one of the Norwegian universities, and he's the man for endurance training, his research.
Right.
And he has the 3-zone model, which is that aerobic zone, and it's measured by blood lactate levels, as well as other physiological changes that take place. But he was talking about the perfect, and they call it polarization, which is 80% in zone 1, which is that aerobic zone.
Yeah.
That middle zone where we tend to always train, which is that anaerobic zone, that 2 minutes, then you fall over and hope that somebody's got an oxygen tank, which is taking you into zone 3, which is the high lactate threshold. Literally, you're on your last 30 seconds, say. But he's found out, testing the endurance, the big international cyclists, skiers, cross-country skiers, that they're doing this 80-20. 80 in that zone 1, which is very strange, and then 20 in that last high blood lactate, which we would say that lactate threshold, and very little in that zone 2, which was quite interesting, really. So I'm just processing that at the moment to see whether it fits with us or with what we're doing, because we're not going for hours.
You still run though, don't you?
Only on machines. I don't run outside. I do hill sprinting.
Hills, yeah, I've seen.
Yeah, so I do hill work. We do hill sprinting, but not running on the flat outside. I use the running machine for that.
Right.
Because the hill sprinting is not impactive at all. Because we walk back down, sprint up, you're on the balls of your feet, it's really light.
Well, yeah, me and Scott, I mean, I run, I've had a knee injury, and I run long now, but I run on the balls of my feet.
Yeah.
And I often work on that 80% of, like, I'll go for like run for an hour. Yeah. And I'll do it very slow, you know, long, slow distance, and then I'll sprint at the end. I've got a little hill outside my house, which really works for me.
Yeah, and that's you doing, and that's definitely that zone 1.
Yeah.
Not feeling guilty about long and slow.
No, I had to train myself to do it because I'm quite hyper as a person, so it's very good for me, you know.
Yeah, and of course, what you're building there, you and this was the point he was making with that long slow, you're developing more mitochondria in the muscles. So you're developing more power cells in the muscles. The work in zone 3, the 20%, is empowering that mitochondria to work better. So that's the thesis of why that 80-20 works.
Yeah.
And certainly that 20% is the hill sprinting, you know, and hill, although I don't do the hill carries now, not since I've had the replacement hip. We're not doing hill carries.
Scott does Tabata intervals a lot.
It's great, yeah.
And that's great, isn't it? And weighted vest stuff.
Yep, but perfect. Yeah,
Tubes,
it's all that. And I put my longevity down. You know, although I've had a replacement hip, and that was by the same, but I've had the Birmingham hip, the same one that Bob Poynton had, and Terry's had, and Thingy's just had 6 months before me with the same surgeon in Birmingham, and that's fantastic. It's working well.
And so, so can I ask, just your motivation to keep on going? Where does that come from? Do you ever struggle, or is it just now, this is the routine I have?
Yeah, no, it is. It's routine. I've always, I think Simon's got my book, which is Fit to Fight.
That's the one. That's the one.
Yeah, Fit to Fight. And I start on that. I understand myself really well. I never did, but I do understand my motivation. And when I started doing hill work, and I was pushing myself. So it's like going back in the old days when I was on the Great Britain and England squads, and I had to train for that. A lot of the extra fitness work I was doing on my own. So I lived near a park in Manchester that had good hills, good steps going up embankments. So working all that, but what I was doing was I was picking a hill that was really taxing. I was getting 95% up and stopping and thinking, well, I've worked well, that was nice. And it dawned on me that the actual benefit isn't that 95, it's that last 5-10 feet. That's what this is about, is not giving in. Because if you'll do it on the hill, you'll do it in a fight. It's when you want to stop is not stopping. Because that when I want to stop at that 95 is where an opponent is likely to stop. And I want to get that last 5 feet. So that was the motivation. And in all my competitive career, I've had little desire to win. I'm not motivated by winning, but I have an absolute terror and fear of losing. That's my motivation. And that's why I managed to win more than I lost, because it was the horror of losing. And particularly, I was a team fighter. I was never that motivated to fight as an individual. I was a team fighter, and I was at my best because I did not want to lose and let the team down. That was, I understand my motivation quite well. So, and going back to your point, Scott, about routine, what I realized as well is I don't want to have to think and work myself up to a training session. So what I always do, and this is this group I've got now, I build a group around myself. So nobody pays, even if they start off and they're not that good. But if I think they've got keen, they'll work really hard, then over years, they'll become really good and great training partners. So I create training partners for myself, my group, but then I won't let anybody down by not turning up. So I'm not keen on training on my own. I always want to be meeting somebody, so I'm forced to have to get there. But then these 6 sessions are fixed. I don't change them. They are fixed. And that way, I don't have to think about it. For me, training should be like investing. It's like when you say to somebody, do you save money? They say, oh, yeah, I do. So I say, what do you say? They say, oh, it's like 10%. So I said, well, how do you do that? They say, well, you know, if it's there at the end of that pound, I'll save it. And you go, no, fuck off. Let me take it out at the beginning, because it will never be there at the end. So that's, if I've got time at the end of the day, I'll train. No. Set your training time and the rest of your day. I don't care what you do. If you're a brain surgeon, set your time to train, then go and do brain surgery. But everything else, it's just, it won't work. You'll miss it. You'll rationalize it away. You won't do it properly.
I think you pretty much summed up Budo there.
Yeah, well,
I think you have.
Yeah, in a sense, but the Budo is more the fierceness of that warrior spirit, which is fine.
Yeah, but I think pretty much, you know, that comes from not giving up, making training non-negotiable. I mean, I take that as a good definition of Budo.
Yeah, it may be in the way that it translates, but in the motivation, it's that. And also, I think, Simon, you know, this is my 57th year. So martial arts isn't what I do, it's what I am. That's the difference. It's not I don't do 5-a-side. You can't be 5-a-side, but you can be a martial artist.
That's a really good answer.
It's not what I do, it's what I am. So what else would I do, for Christ's sake? That's
a brilliant answer. That's, you know,
it's true for all of us. True for us.
Well, yeah,
it is. Yeah, that's why we're still here.
It's certainly true for you. I mean, you know, Scott's training he's done the same as you. I mean, he surrounds himself with good training partners, and he trains. He do 3 times a week training, and I think it's really important for people who teach martial arts to train. Yeah, and I think that one of the weaknesses of being people who are karate instructors or any instructors is you end up just being a teacher and not a trainer. Yeah. So, you know, so Scott, who's my friend, he trains 3 times a week. I've done the sessions, hard, proper training. Yeah. And then no disrespect to anyone, but the number of people who call themselves karate instructors or martial arts instructors who train hard, like you do and Scott Sensei does, are quite small.
Yeah, I think so.
I think it's a really important point, though, that firstly, it only becomes hard if you stop. And secondly, if you don't stop, it never becomes hard. you just keep on going and
never stop. Yeah, never stop is a really good motto.
You can't do it. And the older you get, so you miss a week, it's 3 weeks to get back. If you were in, say, 50, when you're 55 to 60, you miss a week, it's 6 weeks to get back, or whatever. You know, so you know that hill gets steeper. You know, the more you miss. And you know, my other analogy about training is, you know, we get people coming to us who I say, how are you training? Oh, I train really hard, train really well. And then when they come, what you realize is they've got a training maintenance regime. So training for me is like pushing a stalled car uphill. You've got to keep the bugger moving. You have to keep it going up the hill. The moment you stop and think, oh, it's going, it's going to fucking run over you. It runs back over you. So you've got to be pushing. I don't care how old you are. You've got to be pushing the training. You've got to be falling over at the end of a drill.
It's going to be hard. It's going to be horrible.
Yeah, it's got to be, you know, it's got to be taxing, and it has to be something that there's trepidation with it in a sense. Not all the time, but certain days you set out and you know this hour, I've set it out to be a bad one. And we have some bad ones, you know.
Very good answer. Can I sorry, go on, Scott.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. So obviously, out of the three of us, you've been training the longest, and so you've gone from a very much a time when martial arts was about you had that gatekeeper of knowledge, you had that Kimura Sensei or whoever it was. This is the guy who tells you what to do. You follow him without question. And like nowadays, it's kind of gone maybe to the other extreme where you have like it's almost like a postmodernism where everyone's opinion is of equal merit.
Yeah.
And you get there's no gatekeeper. If you want to learn a kata, you just stick it into YouTube and you can learn it. Blah, blah, blah. So what's your take? What do you think there was like, well, what's your take on it? But like, also, like, did you think that there was greater value in it being more draconian back in the day, or is there more freedom now, which also is more beneficial, or the downside of it being that everyone's opinion has equal merit? What's your take on the changes in the last 50 years?
Yeah, I think you summed a lot of that up there. Really, you know, who would deny freedom? But freedom comes at a cost, that it opens a door for poor standards, because there is no gatekeeper for standards. So if you go back, and I did an article many years ago, and it was called A Bad Photocopy, and it was going back to when we started, like we all did. We're certainly with the Japanese, the very early Japanese, and Simon would remember, say, with the Noida and the Shotokan Japs and the Wado Japs. You never ask them a question. You know, they just put you in a position, kicked everything into shape if it wasn't, muttered at you, fucking swore at you in Japanese. Yeah. So we weren't taught by them. They didn't teach us in the sense of saying the reason we're doing this is that, and you ought to think about this because at your build and you know the angles that you could, no bollocks to that. So we copied them, but we didn't just copy them physically. We copied that meme. We copied that attitude. So we thought that was how you taught karate. So we had a student ask you, and he went, oh fuck, well I won't ask him again. So yeah. So nobody was open enough. We just copied them. Well, it only dawned on me later on, the reason they wouldn't answer a question was they didn't freaking speak English. So it's like, but they still had that same attitude that they were there and we were down there. So we copied them with no idea really why we're doing it. And we got other people to copy us. Then other people copied them. So it's like a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy. Eventually, you've just got a white piece of paper. There's sod all on it because nobody's explained the nuances or the reasons for doing something or the variations. So you've just got, as it went on over the years, you just got poorer and poorer standards in some areas because there were no gatekeepers. What went wrong with the gatekeepers as well was territoriality. And we're not far from some associations, Simon, who you would be very familiar with.
Yeah.
With that, old style, you know, baronial, medieval way of running an association, which kept a standard that didn't change. Okay, so that style did not change, but what came with it were some disastrous side effects that eventually has demolished it. Because on the principle that, you know, if you build walls high enough around people, they want to see what's on the other side. And, you know, I recognize that when we started the BCA, our philosophy was we're not building any walls around people. We've got an open door philosophy, and it goes both ways. We're happy to have you with us, but if you feel you need to go and do something else, fantastic. And they go and do something, and then they'll come back better than they were before. So with that gatekeeping, if it's done wrong, yeah, you're maintaining a standard, but, you know, what other side of the coin have we had to deal with on that? And that doesn't apply all the time. But the cat's out of the bag. We ain't getting it back.
Yeah.
It's unfortunately, I have a phrase for it. Martial arts, no, is like on a wall, it's like mad cat shit. It's just splattered all over the place, you know. So I think you've just got to maintain, you know, I'm never bothered about how bad things are or what's going on, because I'm happy with what I'm doing. I'm very happy with what my people are doing. I'm happy with what's going on in the association, say, you know. Not too sure I know all the time, but you're quite right, you know. So fewer gatekeepers, open society, freedom to do what they like, poor standards, hard, no points of reference where you can say still, he shouldn't be doing that. He shouldn't be that grade. Can't be an 8th Dan at 26. I know he got his 4th Dan when he was 3, but fucking, I'm still not having it. You know? So, you know, yeah.
Can I check? We've got 2 more questions, but one question I really want to ask you about. I've read about your firearms training.
Yeah.
Because you got into security business at a very sort of quite high level. And then the stuff I've seen you talk about firearms training is almost like swordsmanship. It's like, you know, it's like kenjutsu. It's like kata of the weapon and the seriousness and everything. So can you talk to us about your security life and your firearms training?
Yeah, no, the firearms goes back a lot earlier than that. It goes back to my late teens. I was a member of Manchester and Salford Pistol and Rifle Club while I was doing martial arts in the very early days. Yeah. And I joined first of all, and we were just doing slow fire 2.2, 38 indoor in a range. But then a few years later, so I probably had about a 4-year gap, went back and joined again, and they'd started a practical pistol section, which was the combative pistol, and Dennis Martin.
Oh yeah.
Who I was actually emailing backwards and forwards with Dennis, very, very old friend of mine. I've got so much respect for where Dennis took us in the combatives in martial arts. He led the pack. He led all of us on this right path in terms of combatives. So we started a practical pistol team. Now, the practical pistol competitions are courses of fire, but phenomenal scenarios, room entries, going through cars, tunnels, over barriers, taking out targets that have no shoot targets alongside them. So you scored on time and accuracy. And my martial arts, this was martial arts with a pistol, semi-auto pistol, and it's a phenomenal discipline. So we were the Southern Area champions at one time. Shot in the Nationals, shot up in Scotland, shot all over the place. Shot against Dennis in a club on the Wirral. We had a competition over in the Wirral. And then in 1984 or 5-ish, Dennis started with his CQB services. He started the first commercial bodyguard course in the UK. And I did the second one that he ran with Lofty Wiseman
Yeah, SAS slapped you husband, yeah.
Yeah, and a guy called Pete Scully, sadly no longer with us, ex-SAS guy as well. And the course was fantastic. I've got to say, it was absolutely brilliant. Met a couple of guys on there from the north of England, from Sheffield, who were working the circuit in London, and we formed a small partnership. So that was in the 80s. Didn't do an awful lot. We started a company. They got some work from it, but I was caught up on the door. I was working for Schroders in Manchester. But then I'd semi-retired to the west coast of Scotland, came back and decided that the close protection, I'd do that full time alongside the martial arts and also security and risk management work. So for the next 20 odd years, I worked 30 odd countries, working say 15, 20 times in Russia, Ukraine, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Uganda, twice in Lebanon, in Beirut, once for Merrill Lynch, once for the University of University of America in all over the world. And so that was the next 20 odd years. So the security side, I'm still very much involved in that, on the risk management, working for big corporations. So.
But I was thinking about what's true about the gun training is just, it's almost like a kata of, we talked about this the other week, preparing the safety of the gun and using a gun. It has all the principles of martial arts. It has Zanshin, you know,
it has everything.
Yeah.
It's perfect. It's a perfect step for karate people to add another dimension on, just the sheer fun of it. And particularly when
the seriousness of it as well, isn't it? It's a serious, because you can't dick about with the gun, can you?
You can't piss around. No, safety is first and paramount. But the speed, and the great thing about the practical pistol was that combination of speed against accuracy, that challenge of moving through a course of fire at speed but being accurate and having to do magazine changes as well.
Grace under pressure, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah, grace under pressure. And that calmness that you can get when that buzzer sounds and you're off, you know, and it's like, and then the interesting thing is you get the course of fire before the competition. So you've got the course, so let's say there's 3 or 4 courses of fire that they're going to set up scenarios, and you've got maybe 30 targets, and they've got no shoot targets. So if you hit a no shoot next to a shoot target, that's you're losing points. So you read this, you think, I've got that, but then you stand on the line. The reality of it, you're looking down range, you think, shit, this looks nothing like that piece of paper. And then the buzzer goes, and somehow, subconsciously, your mind's got it, you know, which is like real martial arts, that stop thinking about it. Your brain has actually figured it out. Let it do it. You just get the legs moving and make sure you can get that pistol points in the right direction. So I loved it. And then, of course, we had all the pistols taken off us. And then I was running Bodyguard, my own Bodyguard courses. I was running BG courses down in the Midlands, a place called the Bog. Great ranges down in Shropshire. So for many years. And then working abroad on close protection details.
Yeah, I mean, in your book, you talk about when you were on, like, living in a compound or something, every day you were training, weren't you?
Yeah, that particular one was in Algeria, down in the desert, a place called Hassim Massoud. We were looking after BP executives. They were building a new camp for BP there, but one of the problems was the Algerian terrorists. So we had we had a temporary camp, which was like a villa compound owned by quite a wealthy family there. So at night we had soldiers who were looking after the camp, but the temperature was in the top 40s or 50s during the day. So I could only train first thing in the morning. So classically took my skipping rope with me, which goes everywhere if I was going abroad. And then, so I used to do a circuit around the thing in the morning, and the soldiers were capturing scorpions in plastic drinking things. So in bottles, they were looking how many scorpions they got at night. So then I'd do skipping. There was an old tennis court where it had fallen down a bit, but it had a wriggly fence. So I was skipping in there, then working punches and kicks on the fence before it got hot. Otherwise, you've got no chance, you know. So and then, you know, in Ukraine, I remember in Ukraine in winter, leaving the hotel, trying to find some steps that were probably more ice on than frigging Everest, trying to do hill work on it with locals walking past with about 18 layers of clothing and shapkas, big foot, and I'm there in shorts at like minus whatever trying to do hill work. So yeah, you've got to be inventive in these places, Simon. Yeah.
Nice answers, sir. Nice answers.
Yeah.
Well, I'm more than aware that we've gone on past an hour, so I you know, I don't want to go too long and keep
sure.
There's his time, but Simon, do you have anything else to?
Last, well, yeah, I have two questions. Short answers. What are the 5 techniques that you used on the door?
Yeah, so always my first shot was that double hit with that very short vertical fist, solar plexus, because it's under the eye line. And all my shots, the beauty about preemption is, what you should end up with preemption is absolute control, but with no damage. So everything that I did was to get control, but without having any residual damage.
Yeah.
So never punch the face. It was always slaps to the face. So straight punches to the solar plexus, slaps to the face, elbows if I was having to turn them. So if I was holding them by the elbow and turning them, and I could feel them turn this way, then it would be double hit with an elbow to here or the chest. Punches to the leg, and a big power sweep, which is one of my sort of dog and pony shows. So that's a big power sweep, which just takes them off the feet and levitates them for 5 minutes.
And would that take the fight out of people generally?
Pretty much.
they'd be drunk and in a pub and stuff, yeah. No grappling. Ever chokes or holds or locks?
No, I have. I'm very cautious about chokes. Chokes or strangles, you've got to know the difference, obviously. Never choke people, always happy to strangle them. But I had a technique where I'd move, if somebody was pointing, slap this lead arm and then slide it up here. So I'll lock their arm vertically up in the air, and then this locks against their neck, which I'll lock at the back. So they've locked their own arm like this. So I'm underneath here, so I can't choke them, but I can just stop the blood and get a strangle going on here, and they'll just go limp, and I can move them where I want. So that was one. And
then you must have had encounters with multiple opponents, same thing?
Yep. Yeah, multiple opponents. There's a myth about multiple opponents. Multiple opponents you want close to you. So we have a multiple opponent drill. So it should be 3 really impactful, absolutely devastating strikes in a quarter of a second. Not even half a second. Shouldn't be half a second. Maybe half a second. I'll give it that. That's it. But you need people close for that. So that's counterintuitive to how you would think you'd want multiple opponents. So if you can afford to get them a bit closer than you might be comfortable with, then 3 can go out as easily as 1 can go out.
Okay. Last question then. When do you stop doing all this and do Tai Chi in the garden?
When I think there's either a choice between golf or Tai Chi, so.
Right. Danny would want you to do Tai Chi.
Yeah, it's in the, I've got the books.
I've got the books too.
I'm gonna, yeah.
Absolutely fantastic talking to you. Really,
it's been absolutely wonderful. Thank you for your time and your knowledge and your patience with us. It's been fantastic.
No, thanks. Thanks for the questions. Really interesting, because it helps. Like with Simon, obviously, you know so many people that we both know. So fitting those timescales together with the people that we've known in them and the influences that we've had from.
Well, do you still do karate?
Yeah.
I knew you'd say that. That's a brilliant answer.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Of course I do.
That's a great answer.
No, karate's my home system. It's the foundation of everything. You know, even this morning we were working on things from Zenkuts and moving in it and thinking about weight and transfer and kick shot and why we would move in a certain way and benefits of it. But it's karate, we're just doing it in shorts or trackies, you know. So
very disrespectful. No karate suit. Oh, I've just another question from Paul Uren. In punching, is the front leg more important than the back leg?
Pretty much.
Yeah, I told him, yeah. I thought I'd ask you the question.
Pretty much. If you're punching forward, if you're going backwards, if you're skipping backwards to punch, strangely, the front leg is still important because you're scooping the front leg back. So if you're skipping backwards, you're scooping the front leg back to come over the top to punch. So you're transferring the scoop back. So if you've got somebody who's a grappler who's going for that front leg, that has to come out the way. So we scoop it back and then we transfer that scoop to the punch coming over the top. And then the back foot readjusts to give you that distance at the back. So we scoop the front and then move on to the back foot to get the stance again. And we can do that 2 or 3 times. Skip back, skip back, skip back. You know?
Thank you.
Yeah. So, but principally, yeah, you're right. The front leg is more important than the back leg. Yeah. Cool. There's caveats to that, but
honestly, absolutely joy. I mean, I hope we've got to meet up sometime.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say where you are. We're just two junctions down the M1. So M62, M1. We're in Wakefield.
Oh, are you? I think you're in Manchester.
No, we're in Wakefield.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So M62.
We'll meet up. When Ross and the boys come over, I'll come and observe them getting battered.
Yeah, Thursday morning, they'll love it.
They're good lads.
Yeah, they're really looking forward to it.
Yeah.
They've been battered by him before, so you know they can just go up another level. Yeah. Battering.
This has been really enjoyable and really nice to meet you.
We always with a quick kampai. So
I've drank mine.
You drank yours. Okay, quick kampai.